Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Sunday Musicians Café. As you can see, this one is a rather special one because we are at the Royal College of Music with Helen Kuby. How are you today, Helen?
I'm very well, how are you?
Very good, very good. What are you drinking there?
Today I have a peppermint tea.
Oh, wow.
Just, getting the Zen zone, just really refresh the palate.
Of course. I'm having my usual espresso after lunch,
Yeah, absolutely. The Italian
nice.
way and also polar opposites, so together it's great.
Exactly. You've been in this place many times, no?
Yeah, very many times. So I was here part-time for 2 years. Which was every Thursday, so it feels very weird to be here and not on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Hi there, my name's Helen Kuby and I'm so excited to launch Sounds Confident, previously known as Healthy Young Musician. We are a collective of musicians who specialise in musician health and performance psychology, dedicated to supporting both young students and educators alike. We all know the challenges that come with being a musician, whether that be performance anxiety, perfectionism, practice motivation, or anything else. We are here to support you with research-informed resources and tailored workshops to support you or your students with whatever it is they may be facing. Do check us out at soundsconfident.org.uk and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye for now.
It actually started out as Healthy Young Musician.
Okay.
And that was at the Academy, and as it's developed, we've started to develop it because quite often the word health can mean many things to different people.
Absolutely.
And I think as adults, we think health, great, we love health.
Yeah.
But for a teenager, health is, why would I care about that?
Yeah.
Whereas actually what all teenagers want is to be confident, or they identify as confident. So that's kind of a encapsulating word, which kind of involves that kind of performance psychology thing as well as general mental well-being and physical well-being.
Wow, this is so interesting. You already touched many points that I want to talk about. And tell us a bit about your background. How do you came out with this idea of starting a new project on your own? And taking care of health in music world obviously is very important, and sometimes we forget about it, as you said. So tell us about how did you start thinking about when you were a student already, or since you graduated you thought, okay, this is a need for the music industry?
Yeah, I think it was a very organic idea, I think, because so I come from a background where I didn't have that kind of very musical upbringing. I was from Central Middlesbrough State School. I was in the music hub, which was amazing and wonderful. And then I actually did my undergrad academically. And I actually went into the uni being like, oh, I hate performance. It's the worst. Just take, okay. I was like, I'll just take the first year module because that's easy marks because I have some pieces ready. And then long story short, by the end of my third year, I was like, oh my God, I love this. I want to go and do it. So then I got a place at the Academy, went to the Academy, and suddenly it was the first time in my life I'd been around, elite musicians.
Okay.
So I didn't do NYO, I didn't do NCO, I wasn't involved in anything like those. I'd never met like a really, really, really good young musician that, had been through that process. And I found it absolutely so exciting, so incredible. But also having that big culture change made me see lots of things.
Of course.
In others, but also myself.
Yeah.
So, the way people, if they don't practice, they'll think they're terrible for the day. If they, play one wrong note, they think they're terrible. And it's just, coming from a background where I don't come from that kind of upbringing, it made me realize how differently things can happen in different kind of social cultures, I suppose.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that kind of sparked my interest, and eventually, don't get me wrong, I fully experienced loads of these things myself.
Yeah, exactly. Because every musician, myself, I was while you were talking, I was seeing myself in that. Obviously, because as a horn player, I'm a violinist, and we grew up thinking that performance is the actual aim for everything, and has to be perfect, and perfectionism, and also you kind of go in a loop all the time. And that's great. But how did you manage to stop and think? Because that's difficult.
Well, I think as it was for many people. So as I say, I did that, and my final year was 2020. So obviously 2020 happens, the big old C19 arrives, that made me stop.
Okay, yeah,
and
makes sense.
I, being not sporty at all, got really, really, really into running.
Okay.
And I loved it. And I was addicted to looking at practice, you know, how do you run, like running regimes,
Really? Okay, that's
strengthening exercises, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I went from not being a runner to running like half a marathon in like 3 months. And I thought, wow, oh my God, like if you think about these things, it's actually not too much effort and you can get really good at it. And that was a bit of a kind of ding for me in terms of why don't we do that as musicians? Like rest days are really important, flexibility exercises are really important, all that kind of thing. And
why do you think we don't do this? I mean, is it cultural or?
I think it's so much, and I think that's what kind of leads me into eventually, you know, I kind of got interested, and that's why I started at college, was to study in the performance science course, because it just teaches all these different things. But I think coming from the background I was talking about right from the beginning, I realised myself how I was never taught how to practice. I hadn't had any of these things ingrained. No one ever talks about what anxiety is, why do we feel it, what do we do about it? And I thought, you know, so many conservatoire musicians by the time they're 18, even before that, they have this thing of if I don't practice, I'm a terrible person. But what if we could change that from when someone starts learning an instrument? So actually these healthy habits become an integral part of being a musician. So in the same way we practice our scales to the point we don't think about it, in the same way we practice, in the same way we deal with performances, if we can build that in as teachers, it's going to be way more impactful than trying to come back to these things later in life.
Which is the age you think you should start teaching this as well?
Exactly.
When is the age, more or less? When do you think?
Well, it very much depends. So this is kind of what my projects are starting is exploring. So the MSc I did here was, as I say, absolutely incredible. And I kind of specialised in looking at pedagogical techniques in this. I especially looked at performance psychology and mental well-being of adolescent musicians in this kind of world. But I think it's kind of from day one. So, you know, one of the things as a teacher, I always say to my students is the very first day I'm like, you know, I say what I expect for practice and all that kind of stuff, but I always say to them, you know, come to me. If you haven't practiced, that's okay. Just please be honest with me. Because if you have a student that isn't practicing...
I like that. Be honest, Be
honest, because it's like, I'm never going to be mad, because I see it as, if a student isn't practicing, it means they're not excited to pick up the instrument. So how can I, as a teacher, make it more exciting?
I guess it's very much a psychological work you have to do as well. I think it's... I mean, it gets to the point where, I mean, you're shaping more the personality of than the technical skills of a musician.
You say that, it's kind of two in one, because, you know, say for example, with scales, how many kids hate scales, right? So many. But you can, if you build it into, like, you know, teaching them how, like, you know, how to practice, how much to do that, like, what does that look like, what works for that student. If you can, you know, like, I have a student who loves improvisation, and so we'll do an improvisation based on C major for a week.
Oh, wow, okay.
You know, suddenly you're working all these different psychological tools rather than thinking, I hate doing scales, or, you know, oh, I'm just going to do improv because whatever, it's fun and I'm avoiding that thing. Why can't you combine the two? And that's working so many different parts of your brain, but also technically as a musician, you're building in not just a technical practice of a scale, but also your musicality.
Your kind of attitude to it,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very interesting, actually, yes. I would like to participate as a, you know, as a customer of it. I feel like maybe after the interview we should talk on a personal level. But obviously I'm very interested also on the, let's say, the business side of it, no? Like, that's very interesting to me. Maybe it's my cat more, but because obviously this is a project that is very attractive for conservatoires, and I think the grant obviously will help on spreading to the other places. But how do you structure this in an actual business? I mean, How do you do that? I mean, it's such a lovely idea. Sometimes it feels like you're corrupting the idea, no? Just because you're offering it as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. So
How do you do that?
I think this is also why, you know, the way this project started was actually, it was in the Junior Royal Academy of Music. And that's been going for 3-4 years now. And, you know, I'm so lucky to have the support of the director of the Junior Academy there, John Hutchins, as well as my two colleagues, Julia Duchens and Judith Kleinman, who's also at college. And we've been kind of experimenting with that. From that, it's meant that we're now working with the Conservatoires UK on developing that. So, to relate to your question about RCM Accelerate, I was really keen, you know, coming from the background I do myself, I'm extremely passionate about widening participation and for, you know, why does this have to be just for those, you know, elite young musicians? It can be for everyone, they're just life skills. So this grant will actually be going towards things like music hubs and schools. Okay. So this specific grant is going towards that side of it in terms of
makes sense. I mean, it's broader concept, right? I mean, you don't want to limit it to just top performers, let's say.
No, exactly. And, you know, with the kind of money aspect, you know, we quite regularly work with, like, you know, private schools and different kind of arts organisations that pay for us to come in and do stuff. So that's where, you know, we'll be paid for our services. And that can also feed back into providing resources for the students in music hubs and all those other elements.
It's beautiful. I mean, I guess also, I mean, I know I started business myself, and it's always very hard to cope also with, you know, sometimes we have ups and downs also with good projects. I don't know if you ever experienced like a bad moment in this project. What was it? If you want to share it, you felt like discouraged. Okay, this is not working.
Yeah, I'm sure there's been loads of moments. It's kind of overwhelming to pick out one. Yeah, I think, as I said before, you know, I've been running this for 4 years in a junior conservatoire, and you know, this is the first project of its kind in terms, and we run these sessions every single week.
Massive, yeah.
And you know, there's not much for us to model things off. So many times we have to experiment.
Yeah.
And we've been experimenting, we're still changing the model. And there have been weeks where, you know, I think I've called a session, you know, things like how to take downtime. I don't know, say the session's called that.
Yeah.
No one turned up.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because what teenager needs to know that, you know? Whereas actually, you know, so that's been a massive learning curve, is actually thinking, well, we know it's great as adults. I know that this would be really beneficial, but I need to get inside of their brains, and that's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, I think immediately, like, okay, your job is actually to know what what a teenager needs, right? And more than, I mean, it feels like it's related to music, but not just to music, right? It's life related, and I think I don't know if you use any of the techniques for yourself. I guess so. I mean, Yeah, all the time. I mean, it's a constant battle, and I think this is something that I always sometimes feel a bit imposter syndrome-y about. You know, I teach all these things to teenagers, and I'm like, I should really do that. You know, like I definitely experience performance anxiety, like quite a lot. It's really affected me, but it still affects me to today. But something that I've learned through what I've learned and applying these skills and working with students, you know, for them is accepting it. Okay. And how working with it. Let's pretend I'm a teenager, and I tell you, yes, I play the violin, and every time I like playing violin. So I enjoy very much at home playing violin for my parents, maybe for people that don't judge me, maybe. So already, you can see that there is a judgmental element that makes me shake, for example, or makes me anxious before going on stage. But the feeling of being on stage I like. But how do I cope with that period of time, between performing and
that kind of backstage door syndrome.
Exactly.
Gotta get
how do you do that?
That's it's always the worst bit for me, kicking the table and anxiety. I think our model that is based off, so our entire Confident Musician system, is built on a cycle. So the first thing is knowledge, then self-awareness, and then tools with creativity in the centre. So, for example, performance anxiety, we've all felt it. Most people have in the world, some people haven't, which is, a different thing. But personally, I might have what makes us anxious as humans. Well, that's the first thing we have to address, right? So
judgment. Maybe it's judgment. No.
Yeah, but even biologically, why does that happen? Why is it just because we're in a certain scenario?
No idea.
Yeah. Which is mad, isn't it? Considering how many musicians face this.
I think like adrenaline maybe is.
Adrenaline's a big part of it.
They told me that.
Yeah, adrenaline's definitely a big part. But even where's the adrenaline come from? How does that happen?
Okay.
And it's actually because without going into too much biological detail, we have a big vagus nerve. It's our main central, it's called the motorway system that runs from our head down to our spine, and then that goes off throughout our whole body.
Okay.
And at one point, it splits off into two, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And take away these big fancy words that, what does that mean? Sympathetic, is your fight and flight.
Okay.
And your parasympathetic is your rest and digest.
Yes, I heard about that.
Yeah, exactly. So, fight and flight. The reason we have that is because back in the day, when we were faced as cavemen with a lion, what are you going to do to save yourself?
You escape, you run away.
You either run away, fight it, or you go, maybe if I stay really still, it'll just go away.
Do you think that some musicians that try to fight and that's what... Okay, I see. I would run away mostly.
Well, I think I've had all of the above, I think.
I think I wouldn't fight with anybody on stage. But
and I think just for the next bit, we think, wouldn't it be amazing for us to, rest and digest? I always say it's like, when you eat Christmas dinner, what do you want to do afterwards?
Just rest.
Just rest, have a nap. Do you want to go and perform your violin?
No.
So we don't really want to feel like we're being eaten by a tiger, but we also don't want to feel like we're about to fall asleep after Christmas dinner.
Okay, I see.
Suddenly, if you think about that, there's a balance to be had. And I think as soon as you shift that kind of perception, anxiety is not a scary thing, and then it's about managing it. So that's when we come to self-awareness. So, you just said, this really, because I think you had really great self-awareness. You were saying, I'm getting shaky, I'm, getting all adrenaline, I can feel it running through my body. Well, there's lots of things we can do. And that's very much about experimentation. That's why things like meditation exists. Alexander technique's a fantastic way, just laying on the floor. For me, I find I have excess energy, so I kind of want to shake my arms off. I want to do all these different kinds of things.
So knowing your body, knowing your reactions is very helpful already.
Absolutely. I've had so many students, every time I'm shocked by it. I'll sit and do these sessions and, we'll get to the point of before we even talk about, what we do, I say, what happens for you when you get nervous? And I remember going around this room, there's like 15 kids in a room, and there was like, I get shaky hands, I get sweaty palms, I get a fast heartbeat, I get tense, I crunch my shoulders. All these things we know. And there's always one kid that goes, I thought I was the only person that felt that way.
Wow. Yeah, makes sense.
So even just the idea
already that is so therapeutic, no? It's so helpful.
Exactly, just to talk about it, but also being like, there's kids who thought they were the only people that felt those things.
Alone,
but also not to be able to know what it was or why, or that actually... you're anxious. And I think the final thing that I always say to students that Julie and Judith actually passed on to me, which I thought was amazing, our body can't tell the difference between being nervous and being excited.
Wow, okay, Which is it?
Exactly. But I think even that concept psychologically is amazing, isn't it? Because if you're feeling really nervous and you're like, oh God, and you get that kind of let's go energy. But sometimes that can be a bit too much. You're like, actually, I'm feeling this way because I want to perform really well and I love this music. Of course, and I want to put my all into this.
Yes.
It's suddenly a lot easier.
Yeah, someone told me, I don't remember, some professors maybe in a masterclass or some, told me that when you're nervous, because I was nervous probably playing for him, I don't remember precisely, but I really remember the sentence he told me. He was like, it's because you're thinking about yourself and not about the music, no? That was kind of hard, but also touched a very important point. It was like maybe I focus too much on myself. No,
Yeah.
so that's very interesting. I mean, but this is lovely, and you mentioned that you do like group sessions and stuff. But so if someone is not in a fancy conservatory in UK, how do we reach to you?
Yes, exactly. So this is what exactly the RCM Accelerate is supporting me with, because as I say, I'm very, very keen for this to be accessible for any young musician, regardless of background.
Yes.
So this is what the RCM Accelerate is is to be able to set up like essentially a website of these resources that you can follow.
Fantastic.
And it's not just for students. I say if you're a student, and I mean, we always go to anxiety, but there's loads of things. How do you practice? How can I best practice? Who teaches
Your
you?
self-talking also is very important. How
Self-talk? Absolutely loads of stuff. And you can basically go onto the website and be like, you know, I don't really want, especially teenage boys, they don't want to, quite often they might not want to talk about it to their teacher. No, I'm confident. But inside they might be feeling, actually, no, I really do struggle with this. If you can go on somewhere privately and just click on a thing and be like, learn about why you're feeling that way, what you can do, and just see that, you know, that's going to support someone. So that's kind of one side of it. The other side of it is for teachers.
Okay.
Because as we know, generally in the larger, not for all, but most music teachers that teach instrumentally don't have much training, if
Actually,
any.
none, yes.
So if you can see this is where the systematic change happens. Because if for generations people have been taught by people and they didn't know how anxiety works or how to practice. And it's like, you know, you obviously just practice 10 hours a day. That's then going to turn into injuries and burnout and all these kinds of things. You know, we need to be educating and supporting teachers because, you know, I did some research with some young people and, you know, I asked them, you know, if you had a problem, who would you go to? And they all say, my teacher. That was the most common answer. But if that teacher's, one, it might be that they want to try their absolute best and they want to do it, but they're just not sure. The idea is that the website can provide them with support on how to help that student.
Of course, that makes more sense. I mean, you have like a specific way to help teachers to help their students, and that's very helpful.
Exactly, and that's
also it's someone that they trust normally, so they would open up.
It's an amazing thing being a teacher, because how often in life of an adolescent do they get to see an adult that isn't their parent on a one-to-one basis every week for potentially over 10 years of their life? How special is that relationship?
Yeah, very special. Yeah.
And I think there's so much responsibility on the teacher, which can be pressurizing. Like teachers, there are so many incredible teachers, and they want to try their best, and maybe sometimes they're just not sure, or the panicked, or they don't want to do something wrong. Things like DBSs can be scary, and I think that's the other part that really is important to mention, is that lots of this scheme is about prevention, because say with performance anxiety, yes, of course, performance anxiety is a very normal thing. But if you're feeling like you're about to walk on stage in front of 1,000 people when you're getting a school bus, or when you wake up in the morning, that's a different thing.
Yeah,
and you're
true.
And you're catching something that potentially, you know, could be a start of potentially a mental illness or something going on. And you can be like, okay, let's help those teachers identify that might be a red flag and get them some really early support, because teenagers are, I can't remember exactly the percentage, but something like 40% more likely to not have a mental illness when they're older if it's addressed in their teenage years.
Wow, that's a high number.
Yeah, I'll double check on that quote.
Yeah,
it's World Health Organization is the source. I definitely might be wrong start. But it's something ridiculously high.
Definitely, it means a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it means that the prevention probably is the key, right, for this,
Exactly.
But the problem is that people don't want to talk about it, so we have to break the kind of wall.
And I think actually that's where, in a lot of ways, things like music hubs, they're the people. So the other part of this is, you know, providing training for teachers. So I've been going into conservatoires and music hubs to provide staff training, and you actually get very receptive people. And music hubs, I think, are a fantastic way of really starting to instill that training. And the more that kind of simultaneously happens both in conservatoires and in music hubs together, I think it can make more of a kind of socio-economically equal thing. Yeah.
I see what you mean, I would be fair. Fantastic. I mean, this project, I really wish you to expand it the most you can. I mean, do you see yourself very busy with this project, or you still have time to teach and perform?
Yeah, it's very much like I've always
On a
lived
personal level, let's say.
I've always, I'm very much always want to be doing teaching, performing, and this. So it's very much like an equal thing.
Okay.
But I think we were having this conversation just before this episode about, you said, oh, do you prefer teaching or performing? And it's like, I can't make that decision. I love them. And I think actually this is part of that. I think, the sessions I do individually with my students, or if it's doing some training, or whether it's doing, the sessions on a Saturday, it informs what happens on the website. And if I experience something as a performer, I'm like, oh, I should make a little thing about that. Let's go into the research. And that's maybe something I've not mentioned actually, is that all of this kind of information comes from research.
This is obviously,
Yeah, but I think it's also really,
it's good to mention.
But I just thought, it's so much, I think people... There's so much research out there. Anyone in this kind of performance science space knows that performance anxiety is one of the most researched areas. And there's so many different perspectives, and it's been going on for like 20 years, if not more. Yet it's not really translated to musicians.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it's about, I always call it I think about it as like a dummy's guide for academia, because that's how my brain works.
Cool, that's cool.
And that's kind of what the basis of that is.
That's fantastic. I wish very much that the grant is going to help you to spread it as soon as possible and broader as possible as well. And I'm conscious of time, and I always ask this at the end of every chat. It's a kind of a personal question, but also you can take it as maybe more as a career. You can choose whatever Kat give it to this question. And I would ask you, what would you say to your younger self?
Many things.
Pick one.
I would say... Oh, God, that's really hard. I think something
Take your time,
along the lines of don't let other people's opinions and views stop you from what you love doing.
Nice. Thank you so much. This touched me as well. It's very nice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time for us to talk about the project.
Pleasure.
Fantastic. And I wish you the best.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.